Yeah, there's like an afterglow with a great film where you need time to like process. You come out of the theater, it's dark, but you're still in that world and you're still in those characters. And it is difficult then to go to another equally great one or whatever. It loses something because that's the beauty of loving a film is you're lost in it for weeks, sometimes almost a lifetime if
Yeah.
it's really that powerful.
Yeah. I think what the problem is too is that, and I said this online and I've often gotten criticism from it, is that I don't like having an instant reaction to things. But the way that we as film critics are, and what has kind of been programmed into our brains, is that we want to react to something as soon as we see it. It's what I keep saying about being the first. You want to get into that first screening. You want to be the first to see the Batman. You want to be the first to see Top Gun Maverick, right? There's something special about being part of that initial buzz to kind of be like, I saw this before other people. And it's not anything about ego. It's just this feeling of like, wow, I was important enough, or this studio looked at me and trust my opinion well enough that they would include me in those first batch of reviews or those first batch of reactions. So I often come out of a movie and almost subconsciously, first thing I do, pull out my phone and I just start typing a reaction. I mean, even stuff that's out. Like, it's just like, okay, this movie's been out, but I still feel like I have to chime in on it. Like when we were at, a couple of days ago, we went to see Minions, and I didn't go to the press screening for that because it was a busy week. And I went to just see it at a regular theater. And it was funny because I'm seeing it with everyone else. And yet, as soon as it's done, pull out my phone, reaction. It's like, there's no need. Like, all the reviews are out. But it's just like this knee-jerk thing that we all do because we become programmed that you want to be part of that buzz. You want to be part of that experience. And that's what social media does. I mean, in a lot of ways, it's kind of, again, another controversial subject is it has taken away from in-depth reviews. I used to be the type of person who would spend 5 hours writing a review. And I mean, my wife used to laugh at me all the time. She's like, what are you, writing a novel over there? Like, you're talking like 1,500, 2,000 words. Every review I wrote, I would go into like what worked, what didn't, how it made me feel, yada, yada, yada. And it's so weird because you put out a tweet and it's like instant gratification, right? It's just like, oh man, he really liked that. It's like, oh, look at it. Look at all the retweets, all the likes. And then you post a review like a week later and you like literally poured 5 hours of your time into it. And it's like 10 retweets, 10 likes. And after a while, it almost becomes discouraging. You're like, why am I going to spend all this time pouring my heart and soul sitting down when I could just have a conversation on a podcast or on a Twitter Spaces for 15 minutes, talk about how I feel, and more people are going to pay attention to it that way. Or even better, just write 5 tweets and put them in a thread, and there you go. And more people are going to read that and pay attention to it than anything that I write in long form.
What about when something's embargoed? How do you stop yourself?
Oh, that's really difficult, especially when, again, it's the extremes of everything, right? If it's a movie that you walk out of and you're like, it's fine, or you don't really have a reaction to, those are the hardest ones to review, the hardest movies to talk about, and the ones that have no impact on embargoes because you're just kind of like, all right, don't really have much to say about that anyway. But it's when you see something that's so good or so bad. And I can tell you this, I have no problem admitting this. I will tell you that studios will absolutely kill you if you slander a movie that they have really, really high praise for, or they're hoping to have a really strong box office, and you come out and rip it to shreds when the embargo lifts. Without going into details, I have been kicked off lists many of times for years at a time because I said so-and-so movie was not good. And it's not just the studios. It's the producers, it's the directors, it's the stars. They're like, did you see what this person said about our thing? And again, social media, the lack of control, and everyone's looking for the next clickbait headline. That I have had some tweets of like something that I felt really strongly about, like in terms of negative, be the headlines of major publications as like, this movie is the most disappointing movie that I have seen all year. And when that gets out and studios see that and talent sees that, not a good look. And it's been really difficult because I always pride myself on being very, very honest. But then sometimes I've also realized that I'm too honest, and I'm kind of brutally honest to a fault, that I've been sort of trying to find the good with the bad. So I'll try to kind of say, this, and this are pretty good, but this was really bad. So it kind of like waters down it a little bit, so it doesn't come off as like so harsh. And again, I think that's what any good critic should do, is that they should be able to look at something and kind of say, okay, this movie's really not that good, but there's got to be something good about it. So now I've been more, I don't know, I take a little bit more time to process something if I have a immediate like knee-jerk reaction to it of like negativity, that I want to process it a little bit and kind of say, okay, is there anything about this that I liked? And kind of make that a little known as well. And then I'll hammer in on the negative. But I think it's really hard nowadays because this area that we live in with criticism is so vast. Because before, it was like you worked for a trade or you worked for a newspaper or a TV outlet, right? Those were like the three things. And now, and I mean, this is not new, but like over the past 15 years, it's like you can be a YouTube reviewer, you can have your own blog, you can be on TikTok, you can be on Instagram, you can be all over, you could just do Twitter, you could do Letterboxd. So like all these voices are kind of coming together. And the studios, they really do pick people, and it's all about relationships. And I pride myself on trying to have a good relationship with as many people as possible. But I always promise myself that I have to be honest. If I don't like something, I have to be able to say that I don't like something. I get their fear of like maybe not being the first person out of the gate to kind of rip something to shreds. But to me, something that's being lost nowadays is like this fear of like losing your access because you're honest.
And I think that's a good point. And I think it's good to be respected and not have sort of a used car salesman vibe to you, which I know is prevalent sometimes in Hollywood. But at the same time, I think we've all read reviews where whoever it is just went for the jugular on this person. And you don't know, did they know them in college? Like, was there a prior beef? And they just attack them on so many levels. So I think there's like this middle ground. But yeah, I respect that you want to be honest about the review and not sugarcoat it, or just that's tricky because you want to be invited back.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with criticism nowadays is that if you're not a voice that agrees with the masses, and again, what are the masses nowadays, right? Because we live in our own like bubbles. Like the industry, film Twitter, Instagram Twitter, whatever the heck it is, all of these things, they're very specific to a very small audience. And you kind of get like obsessed with it, right? Like, and people are on the internet, as we all know, are very mean, especially if you voice something that's different. So, I mean, I'll give you an example. Dear Evan Hansen. I like Dear Evan Hansen. I like the Broadway musical. I like the movie. Is it a great movie? No, it's good. But I'll tell you, as one of the voices to kind of stand up for that movie, the amount of hate you get when you just kind of disagree with everyone, like, oh, this has terrible messaging. How can you like something like this? And you try to explain yourself, like, look at it from this perspective. And like, no, you don't get it. Like, that's wrong. You can't look at it from that perspective. it's very, very difficult to kind of defend yourself because you're not having a conversation with a person. You're having a conversation online with people who are too afraid to talk to you to your face. And that's what's also weird about film criticism is that a lot of these filmmakers and actors have now become known to who I am as a person because I run a critics organization. And because I run a critics organization, I also have to pause a little bit about my reactions to things because how does this affect other members within our organization? So if I don't like something like Power of the Dog, how is Netflix going to react when that movie gets nominated and we do an award show and we need those people there? So it kind of has this weird thing that I start thinking about is like, is that the reason why most people from Power of the Dog didn't come to the award show? Because they knew that the person at the top of this organization didn't care for the movie? And then you just kind of have this weird pause. And I think that kind of trickles down into every aspect of filmmaking now is that we see this with fans, right? Like Sonic, right? The backlash of the character design, everyone like backlashed against it. And then they redid the character design, granted for the greater good for that one. But Star Wars, Marvel, DC, it's like there's so much outpouring of like criticism and hate that you almost struggle to kind of like know where your voice is anymore because you want to support these things and I love to champion creativity. And I always agree with the statement of art is subjective. And I think so many people forget about it. It's like, how can you not like this movie? And it's like, just didn't resonate with me. I didn't like the characters. I didn't like the direction. I didn't like the story. I didn't like the way it was filmed. There's so many different things that one person could see and another person will see something different. And you just kind of have to learn to live with it. So I never take any offense when people really disagree with me. My only thing is when people start name calling and like really start playing you down as like the worst critic ever because you didn't like something. It's like, no, it's just like, I didn't see what you saw. Sorry.